golden chandeliers blazed overhead, but all eyes shifted as Karoline Leavitt stepped onto the carpet. Her deep blue dress shimmered under the cameras, a quiet salute to the flag. A hush floated over the flashes, admiration in some faces, thin-lipped jealousy in others. From across the room, a sharp crack of laughter ripped through the music. Brad Pitt, surrounded by a ring of Hollywood royalty, grinned wide. The sound hung in the air like a slap. Karoline's glance flickered once in his direction, calm, unreadable. Whispers slithered through the crowd. A few chuckled nervously. A few shifted, uncomfortable. She moved forward, every step steady, every breath measured. Brad leaned toward his group, hand shielding his mouth, but his voice wasn't nearly soft enough. Guess Miss America's here to teach us a few things about being good little patriots. More laughter. Loud, high-pitched, eager to be heard. Cameras swung toward Karoline again, hungry for her reaction. She gave them none. Only a cool, unshaken smile that sliced cleaner than any retort. An invisible current crackled through the room, now half respect, half resentment. Karoline squared her shoulders, the weight of every stare pressing against her. She wasn't here to entertain them. She was here to remind them who they had forgotten to respect. And she wasn't backing down. The American Vision Awards promised a night of unity, of celebrating service and art together. But inside the ballroom, the air cracked with a different energy. Under the gold lights and polished smiles, patriotism wasn't a badge of honor tonight. It was a joke waiting to happen. Karoline moved through the crowd, her steps measured, her blue dress catching the light like a quiet flag waving in enemy territory. Glances slid her way, some curious, some biting, some pitying. She accepted each with a simple nod, never slowing. Her award for promoting civic education among young Americans had been labeled unexpected by entertainment bloggers, a quiet signal that in a room full of fame chasers standing for something real was already out of place. Near the champagne, Brad Pitt lounged like a king surveying his court. His tie hung loose around his neck, a glass of expensive, bubbly tipping easily in his hand. He spotted her across the room, standing tall, unbothered by the wary looks swirling around her. A slow, mocking grin stretched across his face. He nudged a fellow actor and lifted his glass in Karoline's direction. "Miss America's here." The words floated over the crowd, wrapped in fake charm and dripping with contempt. Laughter followed, sharp, eager, desperate to belong. A few chuckles rang out louder than they needed to. Others just gave tight smiles, their eyes flicking nervously toward the cameras. Karoline caught it all. Her fingers curled slightly tighter around her glass, the crystal cutting cool against her skin. But her face stayed composed, untouched by the low-grade venom filling the air. Brad leaned in theatrically, pretending to whisper, but projecting his voice just enough for it to carry. "Maybe she'll give us a lecture on liberty later if we can stay awake through it." Another round of hollow laughter bounced off the marble. Wolves. Photographers nearby tried not to react, some lowering their cameras, others glancing away. Karoline didn't give them the show they wanted. She simply turned, lifting her chin, and continued her steady walk through the room. Every step said what her voice didn't. "You won't shake me." But Brad wasn't done. During the award ceremony, when Karoline's name was called, the audience broke into polite, clipped applause. As Karoline rose from her seat, a single, exaggerated yawn cut through the clapping. Brad, lounging in the second row, stretched his arms dramatically and muttered, "Patriot Barbie!" A few nearby stars snickered, covering their mouths with delicate hands, as if laughing at a funeral. Only this time, Brad's microphone, forgotten in his lapel, picked up every syllable. The insult traveled out of the speakers, caught in the ambient noise. It wasn't sharp enough to stop the event, but sharp enough to slice into the live feed. Within minutes, Twitter lit up like a fireworks show gone wrong. Clips of Brad yawning, sneering, the casual cruelty in his voice all replayed, slowed down, subtitled memed. Some laughed, others paused, a few recoiled, visibly uncomfortable. Half the ballroom wore tight, strained smiles. The other half exchanged uneasy glances, the kind that knew a storm was brewing just outside the velvet ropes. Karoline sat back down after receiving her award, her hands still and steady in her lap. Cameras caught a close-up of her serene face, framed by the glow of the stage lights. If there was hurt, she buried it deeper than any lens could reach. Behind her calm, the tension cracked wider. The night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Called to the stage. Karoline walked straight into the spotlight. The host's voice echoed across the grand ballroom, smooth and practiced. But there was a faint crack in the delivery when he said, "Please welcome Karoline Leavitt." The spotlight sliced across the room, landing squarely on her. She stood slow, deliberate, letting the weight of 1,000 glances settle on her shoulders. Whispers fizzed at the edges of the crowd. Some tried to clap louder, to mask the tension. Others clapped slower, almost resentfully. Karoline's heels clicked softly against the marble as she crossed to the stage. Each step was a hammer blow against the cheap laughter still lingering in the air. She reached the podium and gripped its edges lightly, her nails tracing tiny invisible lines across the polished wood. For a breath, she said nothing. The ballroom held its breath with her. It's easy to mock when you've never had to stand for anything. Karoline leaned slightly into the microphone, her voice calm but cutting through the silence like a scalpel. Thank you. It's easy to mock something you've never had to stand for. No anger, no shouting. Just an undeniable truth dropped into the room like a stone into still water. The ripple effect was instant. Brad Pitt, lounging in his chair, stiffened slightly. His smirk faltered, not gone, but dented. Other celebrities shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their champagne flutes suddenly very interesting. Karoline let the silence linger for a heartbeat longer, then continued. It's easy to laugh at sacrifice when you've never had to risk anything beyond your next movie role, your next endorsement deal, your next round of applause. Her words weren't sharp. They were surgical, and every sentence left a mark. A room full of stars holds its breath. No one dares interrupt. Nobody moved. The clinking of glasses, the rustle of designer gowns, all of it had stopped. Even the background music that played between awards was suddenly absent, as if the whole building understood it had better stay out of her way. Karoline's voice remained steady, like a steady drumbeat. I didn't come here to be liked. I came here because, somewhere tonight, there's a young woman wondering if it's still worth standing for what she believes in, wondering if courage is still louder than laughter. The cameras zoomed in instinctively, catching every blink, every flicker across the faces in the audience. Brad's jaw clenched ever so slightly, his drink untouched now. A few seats away, an actress famous for her activism looked down at her lap, avoiding eye contact with the stage. Karoline wasn't yelling. She didn't need to. Karoline honors a veteran's sacrifice. Every word, a blade of truth. Karoline's tone softened, shifting from firm to reverent. Tonight, I want to honor someone who isn't here, Sergeant Daniel Reyes. He enlisted after 9/11, fought through 2 deployments, and lost his life protecting strangers he'd never meet. She paused, letting the name hang in the air like a prayer. He didn't get to choose the easy road. He didn't get a standing ovation. He got a folded flag and a silent ride home. Several in the audience bowed their heads instinctively. A few wiped at their eyes, caught off guard by the raw, piercing honesty cutting through the gala's polished surface. Karoline's voice grew stronger, lifting the room with it. We are here tonight sipping our drinks, chasing our dreams because of men and women like him. If that makes me old-fashioned, if that makes me a patriot Barbie, then so be it. I'd rather stand with them than sit comfortably among cowards. The word cowards didn't need pointing fingers. It found its own targets. No names mentioned. Yet everyone knows. Karoline never once said, Brad Pitt. She didn't have to. The insult he hurled earlier, the one he thought would vanish into the noise, now clung to him like smoke. No matter how many times he shifted in his seat, crossed and uncrossed his legs, He couldn't outrun the mirror Karoline was holding up to him. And the best part? She never raised her voice. She never lowered herself. She simply made him and everyone like him small. As Karoline finished and stepped back from the microphone, the applause didn't start right away. There was a beat of stunned silence, the kind that follows a truth too heavy to dismiss. And then, a slow, rising standing ovation began, building like a storm. Not everyone stood. Not everyone clapped. But the ones who mattered did. Conflict escalation. Part 2. Cameras roll, and the world watches Brad squirm. As Karoline stepped down from the podium, the cameras didn't turn away. No clever edits. No scripted cutaways. Brad Pitt, Hollywood's golden boy, was now center stage without ever leaving his seat. The director tried to save him, cutting to wide shots, flashing to audience members who still wore polite smiles. But it was too late. Social media was already ablaze, dissecting every awkward shift in Brad's chair, every tight-lipped expression, every desperate sip from his untouched drink. The caption writers moved faster than any publicist. Brad Pitt called out for mocking veterans. Silence speaks volumes. Karoline didn't need to gloat. The world was doing it for her. In the back row, Jasmine Crockett smirks, then stands. Not everyone sat frozen. From the back of the ballroom, a ripple of motion caught Karoline's eye. Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman, firebrand, and no stranger to controversy herself, rose slowly from her seat, clapping deliberately, defiantly. Her smirk wasn't cruel. It was proud. Proud of the woman who had just shaken the very foundations of Hollywood's elite. Jasmine caught Karoline's eye across the sea of stunned faces and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, the kind that warriors give each other across a battlefield when words would only get in the way. In that moment, alliances formed stronger than steel. Brad's allies whisper, panic, behind the glamour. At the VIP tables, a flurry of whispers erupted like a breached dam. Agents leaned over to their clients. Publicists typed furiously on their phones. Managers mouthed frantic instructions across linen-clad tables. Damage control now. Apologize or spin it somehow. Maybe say it was a joke, a misunderstanding. The illusion of untouchability, the shimmering armor that celebrity had always provided, was cracking, and everyone knew it. Brad's polished team, masters of image management, were already scrambling to patch the ship before it sank. But there was no hiding from a truth that had been broadcast live to millions. It wasn't just bad optics, it was a cultural reckoning. Karoline's words, go viral clips, flood the internet within minutes. It didn't take long. Clips of Karoline's speech flooded Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. Edited, unedited, captioned, remixed. Her words traveled faster than any studio PR campaign could dream of. It's easy to mock when you've never had to stand for anything. I'd rather stand with them than sit comfortably among cowards. These lines became instant battle cries. Teenagers posted reaction videos, wiping away tears. Veterans stitched her speech into montages, honoring their fallen brothers and sisters. Journalists debated the Hollywood bubble in urgent panel discussions. Even people who had never heard of Karoline Leavitt before tonight now knew her name. And not because of a scandal, but because she had spoken truth to power when it was hardest. A silent walkout. Some celebrities choose to leave, as the applause finally died down, and the next portion of the event awkwardly stumbled forward. Something even more telling happened. Some celebrities quietly stood up and left. No fanfare. No excuses. Just the soft scrape of expensive shoes against marble, the faint jingle of car keys, and the low grumble of black SUVs starting outside. They left because they could no longer pretend. They left because staying meant choosing a side. And they didn't have the stomach for it. Karoline watched them go without a word. She didn't need them. She had already won. 4. Climax, public confrontation, live-stream leak. The confrontation caught on camera. It wasn't supposed to happen. The gala's organizers had strictly banned. live streaming during the speech's official coverage only, polished and delayed for editing. But in the age of smartphones, bans are just suggestions. Someone no one would ever know who had kept their phone low, discreetly recording everything. Within minutes, raw footage of Karoline's takedown and Brad's mortified reaction hit the internet, unfiltered and uncensored. Not just sound bites, not just news anchors paraphrasing. The raw truth, messy and real, spilled across millions of screens before Hollywood could spin it. Brad's smirk shatters millions. Watch it happen in real time. The smirk that had been Brad's, trademark, that lazy, confident grin that once charmed millions, cracked on camera like a dropped glass. At first, he tried to hold it. The cocky half-smile wobbled as Karoline's words struck deeper and deeper, and then it simply broke. His mouth twisted awkwardly, his eyes darted sideways. For a heartbeat, the mask was gone, and everyone saw it. They saw fear. They saw guilt. They saw a man used to adoration, now helpless before a wave of righteous anger. Millions didn't just hear about it later. They watched it happen, together, in real time, a collective witnessing that no studio budget could undo. Karoline's viral moment grows truth, burns through the glamour. In the hours that followed, Karoline's name trended globally. Hashtags exploded. Karoline Leavitt was right. Veterans over VIPs. Brad pitiful memes surfaced within minutes. Brad's shattered expression superimposed with phrases like, "This isn't the movie set anymore." News outlets couldn't ignore it. Morning shows cut into their scheduled programming to replay the clip. Late-night hosts hesitated, unsure whether to mock or stand with her, and in their hesitation, the world had already chosen. Because Karoline hadn't thrown a tantrum. She hadn't needed scripted drama. She had simply told the truth, and in doing so, burned right through Hollywood's carefully crafted glamour. Brad's PR team scrambles panic behind polished smiles. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Brad's crisis team went into meltdown. Emergency conference calls lit up private lines. Damage control specialists were summoned in the middle of the night. Lawyers reviewed contracts, endorsements, upcoming movie releases, anything that could be at risk. "Release a statement immediately," one advisor barked. "Schedule a veterans charity event," another insisted. "Start an apology tour crying if necessary," a third suggested grimly. Brad's handlers, so skilled at spinning minor scandals into PR gold, faced a new reality. This wasn't a leaked affair. This wasn't a clumsy tweet. This was a moral reckoning, and no amount of polished smiles could paste over the cracks anymore. Karoline's next move. A simple tweet that breaks the internet. While Brad's team scrambled, Karoline needed just 15 seconds and one tweet. No press conference, no teary interview. She posted a single line. "Honor is earned, not scripted. Stand with veterans." No hashtags attacking anyone, no tagging Brad, no drawn-out explanations. Just a clean, devastating truth posted at midnight, when the world was still buzzing, when no one could look away. Within minutes, it shattered retweet records. Within an hour, politicians, athletes, musicians, even some stunned Hollywood stars, shared it with solemn endorsements. Karoline didn't need to yell. She had already won the conversation by refusing to play their game. Real patriotism isn't a punchline. The message that shames Hollywood. By the next morning, Karoline's words weren't just a viral moment, they had become a movement. Journalists dissected her tweet on primetime news. Podcasters, YouTubers, even retired generals quoted her in fiery monologues. Parents shared it. Veterans reposted it. Even teens who normally rolled their eyes at politics made TikToks lip-syncing her line like it was a battle cry. For a town built on scripts, the unscripted had cut the deepest. Brad's casual, punchline patriotism, the rehearsed kind, shone. At movie premieres and awards shows now looked pathetic next to Karoline's raw honesty. The difference was blinding. Real patriotism wasn't red carpets and selfies with flags. It was scars you didn't show, It was promises you didn't break. It was standing for those who had already stood for you without expecting applause. And now, thanks to Karoline, Hollywood had been publicly reminded of it. A clip from the heart. Karoline laughs with wounded veterans. Someone dug up an old clip from 2 years ago, one that hadn't gone viral back then, but now found new life. It showed Karoline in a dusty gymnasium, sitting cross-legged on the floor, laughing with a group of wounded veterans during a charity softball tournament. There were no cameras except the shaky phone of a volunteer, no stage lights, no sound bites, no makeup team. Just her, laughing her heart out with men and women missing arms, legs, some missing hope, until her laughter brought it back for a little while. The clip exploded online. "This," one viral caption read, "is what patriotism looks like." Karoline hadn't needed a gala. She hadn't needed a stage. Her authenticity had always been there. The world had simply been too distracted to notice until now. Public fury turned stars who laughed. Now stumble for cover. Suddenly, it wasn't. Just Brad under fire. Other celebrities caught laughing during Brad's tasteless joke at the gala now found themselves drowning in backlash. Tabloids published side-by-side images, laughing faces frozen mid-sneer, next to wounded soldiers' solemn portraits. Actors posted frantic, awkward apologies. "We didn't mean it that way. It was taken out of context. We love our veterans." But the damage was done. Their laughter had been caught, immortalized, and judged. In an industry obsessed with image, no amount of filters could erase what millions had already seen with their own eyes. For once, the public wasn't buying carefully written PR apologies. They were standing with someone who didn't need a script. Brad's hollow apology drops like a stone and sinks fast. Late that evening, Brad finally issued a formal apology. A polished, pre-approved, focus-grouped statement, posted to his Instagram and Twitter. "I deeply respect our veterans and regret if my remarks were perceived as disrespectful. It was never my intention." The language was so cold, so sterile, that it practically dripped with insincerity. No direct apology to Karoline, no acknowledgement of wounded veterans, no real remorse. Comment sections erupted in fury. "If your remarks were perceived as disrespectful? Man, we saw the video. Own it, Brad. You're not on a movie set anymore." The post became a lightning rod for mockery and rage. Within hours, Brad turned off comments altogether, a digital white flag that only made things worse. His hollow words dropped into the internet like a stone and sank without a trace. Karoline stays silent. And that silence roars louder than any speech through it all. Karoline said nothing. No gloating tweets, no victory laps on morning shows, no triumphal posts. She simply stayed quiet. In that silence, something extraordinary happened. Her dignity spoke louder than any angry outburst ever could. While Hollywood stars scrambled, spun, and stumbled, Karoline stood still, unbothered, unbroken. The public noticed. The media noticed. Even her critics noticed. And in a world that never stops shouting, Karoline's silence roared across America like a cannon blast. It wasn't just a media moment anymore. It was a shift, a reminder that truth doesn't need a microphone to be heard. Morning headlines. Crown Karoline quiet, triumph, over loud fame. As the sun rose, so did Karoline's stature. Newspapers from coast to coast plastered her image across their front pages. "Grace over glamour," read one. "Silence that shamed a city," said another. Cable news anchors, normally cynical, spoke with something close to reverence when mentioning her name. Social media overflowed with praise not for a performance, not for a role, but for a character so rare it stunned a nation used to scandals. And spin. In a world obsessed with loud fame, Karoline had conquered through quiet strength, and it was beautiful. Brad's image bruised his fame. No shield against truth. Meanwhile, Brad woke up to a very different reality. His smiling face, once a guaranteed magnet for moviegoers, now headlined brutal opinion pieces, from hero to hollow. When fake patriotism meets the real thing. His upcoming movie premiere, sponsors pulled out. Red carpet interviews were canceled. TV appearances disappeared without explanation. It turned out that no amount of blockbuster fame could shield him from the truth once it was broadcast live to millions. Brad's team issued more statements, tried to shift blame, begged for second chances. But America had already made up its mind, and forgiveness wasn't coming this time. Invitations roll in. Karoline refuses the spotlight offers, flooded Karoline's eye. Inbox like a monsoon. Major networks wanted exclusive interviews. Daytime shows offered inspirational hero segments. Publishers dangled book deals. Brands hinted at ambassador contracts worth millions. Karoline answered them all with the same short, polite reply. Thank you, but I must decline. She had no interest in cashing in on what was never meant to be a spectacle. She hadn't stood up to Brad for attention. She hadn't faced public mockery to become famous. Karoline knew exactly why she had done it, and fame had never been part of the reason. I'm not here for fame. I'm here for service. A statement that resonates. One evening, when a veteran-focused podcast finally convinced her to give a short interview, Karoline said something simple, and it hit harder than any viral tweet. I'm not here for fame, I'm here for service. Those words traveled faster than wildfire. Memes popped up overnight. Posters with her quote started appearing on high school walls, in gym locker rooms, on army bases. For a tired, divided country craving authenticity, Karoline's statement wasn't just refreshing. It was a rallying cry. In a world where celebrities chased followers, Karoline chased meaning, and the world noticed. Support floods. In veterans, families and everyday patriots stand with her letters started arriving by the hundreds, then thousands. From wounded veterans, from Gold Star families, from small-town mayors, school teachers, single moms, and retired soldiers. Handwritten notes full of gratitude, emails with stories of quiet courage, messages that said things like, "You reminded us we still matter. Thank you for not letting them laugh at our sacrifice. You made us proud again." Karoline didn't post these letters for likes. She kept them tucked in a simple box on her kitchen counter, a reminder that even when the cameras stopped flashing, what truly mattered never would. No gloating, no boasting. Karoline lets dignity speak for her. While Hollywood spun itself into knots trying to find the next distraction, Karoline stayed grounded. No press tours, no victory parades, no social media humble brags. She went back to her small community work quietly, visiting VA hospitals, speaking at underfunded veteran centers, mentoring young service members. She didn't need the world's applause to validate her worth. She already knew who she was and who she wasn't. In a country that had grown suspicious of heroes, Karoline didn't call herself one. She simply was. And maybe, just maybe, that's why America needed her so badly. Karoline watches the sunrise. A new battle dawns. The next morning, as Karoline sat alone on her porch, watching the sun rise over the quiet horizon, she found herself at peace. It wasn't the peace of victory, it was the calm of purpose. Her battle had never been about the glare of cameras or the noise of fame. It had always been about something deeper, something that now felt even more urgent. The fight for truth, for honor, for the lives that often go unnoticed. The next battle was already waiting. Fame fades, service stays, truth endures. Fame is a fickle beast. It burns bright for a moment, but then it fades, leaving only the scars of those who tried to hold on too tightly. But service lasts. Karoline had known this all along. She never sought the fleeting rewards of popularity. Her heart beat for something far stronger. And now, as the public moved on to the next headline, Karoline's quiet service endured, just as it always would. Another stage awaits not red carpets, but real lives. While others scrambled for their place on red carpets, Karoline's stage would be different. It wouldn't have flashing lights or designer gowns, but it would be filled with something far more meaningful: real lives. She was ready to leave the spotlight behind, not in defeat, but in quiet triumph, knowing her work had only just begun. The fight for truth isn't over. Karoline walks toward it without fear. The fight for truth never ends. But Karoline knew now that she was prepared for whatever came next. She didn't need headlines to prove she was on the right side of history. Her actions, her words, her silence spoke louder than any applause. And so, as she walked forward into the unknown, she did so without fear. The path ahead would be challenging, but Karoline had already shown that she was unshaken. The truth would always find its way, and Karoline would be there, standing firm, as it did.